Hi, it's Katrina. A giant structure has been spotted in Antarctica that has sparked all kinds of questions. Is it a base? Just a rock? Nobody knows. But that's not all. It's about to get really cold, so grab your blanket and join me today for a journey into the greatest mysteries of what lies hidden in Antarctica. The Vanishing Structure. From the icy heart of the conspiracy continent comes another enigma. Fear and fascination ripple across the internet as this thing emerges from the white void. Is it the work of human hands? A whisper of forgotten alien technology? Or just some thawing ice? The mystery is wedged between the coastlines of Prince Olaf and Prince Harold. First spotted by a team of self-proclaimed virtual archaeologists, aka extremely dedicated people on Google Earth at 3 a.m., the object they found in Antarctica is about 900 feet long, 150 feet wide, and comes with a bonus 30-foot tall tower. That's no snowdrift, people. That is a lost ancient structure. Thanks to climate change peeling back Antarctica's icy armor, more and more unidentifiable objects are popping up, fueling decades-old rumors that something very strange has been going on under all that snow. Some believe that during World War II, the Germans launched a secret 1938 expedition to Antarctica. They found a giant cave system and set up shop underground. Bunkers, tech labs, maybe even winterproof goose-stepping robots. One version of the story ropes in the Illuminati, saying they built a whole underground city powered by alien tech. I guess the Nazis and the Illuminati have been in cahoots this whole time. According to this theory, after the war went sideways, Nazi scientists and soldiers retreated to their frozen fortress, aka Station 211, and they never left. There's no solid evidence, of course, but people keep claiming they have found so-called proof via satellite images and Cold War rumors. Our latest mystery structure sits at these coordinates that I'll show you here, and features what looks like symmetrical walls and a tower. Is it a base, a buried city, just an unusually organized glacier meltdown? The answer depends on who you ask. Some believe it's the ruins of an ancient civilization wiped out by a prehistoric catastrophe. Others say it's a modern military installation, hidden in plain sight. Are any of them right? What do you think is the most likely? This isn't Antarctica's first rodeo when it comes to bizarre discoveries, as you already know. In 2023, popular conspiracy YouTuber Mr. MBB333 claimed to have found what looked like a metallic structure with a black opening and a metal shield at these coordinates. The discovery prompted theories of an alien vent portal tucked away under the snow. I don't know what that is, but maybe you do. That anomaly was around 150 feet wide and naturally sparked talk of UFO access points, alien domes, and the general idea that Antarctica might be less penguin preserve and more planetary mystery vault. What's clear is that Antarctica, thanks to satellite sleuthing and a dash of imagination, continues to be one of the most intriguing and conspiracy-prone places on Earth. With global warming unwrapping more of its frozen secrets, who knows what will pop up next? Could scientists finally confirm if there is anything out of place in Antarctica, or do we just want the mystery to continue? That's kind of fun. Anunnaki secrets locked away in Antarctica. The silence of Antarctica is deafening. But listen closely. Beneath the groaning ice sheets, can you hear the echoes of a lost world? A world mapped centuries before it was discovered? Some secrets might be best left buried, but the ice is beginning to yield its terrifying truth. There may be evidence of a massive ancient civilization under all that ice. You already saw the potential ruins discovered by Google Earth, but that was only the tip of the iceberg. Get it? Pun intended. Seriously, stick around for this because even though these ideas might seem crazy, we're just following some old maps. In the 1500s, Ottoman admiral and part-time cartography rock star Piri Reis whipped up a map that showed Antarctica. Except it wasn't the icy desert you know today. This version showed it leafy, rivery, and straight-up vacation-worthy. How did a guy from the 16th century chart a continent that no one officially discovered until 1820? And why didn't Antarctica have ice on it 500 years ago when science tells us Antarctica has been frozen for millions of years? Either time travel is real, or someone had the ancient version of Google Earth. Something's fishy, that's for sure.
It wasn't only Piri Reis who made maps of Antarctica before anyone should have even known such a place existed. French geographer Philippe Bouache released 2 versions of a world map. One included Antarctica's coastline, minus the ice.
The other didn't mention it at all, probably because he was trying not to get burned at the stake for knowing too much. You know how those Spanish inquisitors be.
Then there's Orontius Phineas, a 16th century mapmaker who drew Antarctica like it was just another beach day in Rio. Rivers, mountains, 0 snow. According to Dr. W.D. Urey from the Carnegie Institution, those rivers on Phineas's map perfectly match flow patterns from 6,000 years ago carved into the ground beneath the ice. The matching flow patterns is the icing on the conspiracy cake because there's just no other way to explain it. How would this be possible? Orontius must have known Antarctica's precise topography in the 1500s.
How did he know? Seriously. Let me know what theories you have. And of course, this wouldn't be a proper conspiracy without a cameo from Hitler.
Remember Station 211? The story goes that the Germans built that station inside a mountain that they hollowed out like a chocolate Easter bunny. Some say the Nazis weren't there as any part of the war effort, but rather for uncovering secrets of lost civilizations. The Nazis believed somewhere under the ice was proof of their mythical Aryan race. What's extra crazy is that when the US caught wind of the Nazi snow fort, they launched Operation Highjump, a massive Antarctic field trip with battleships. Scientists on the mission allegedly saw disc-shaped flying objects zipping around like it was an interstellar rave. Rumor has it the US only went to Antarctica because they learned that the Nazis were trying to dig up secrets on humanity's past. Whatever the Nazis thought they were going to find, the US wanted it too. Sort of like how the Iraq invasion was supposedly launched to find lost Babylonian teleportation technology.
Anyway, more on Operation Highjump is coming up later, so don't forget. Carl Sagan once said, "Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence." And while theories abound that Antarctica is home to a lost Anunnaki colony or aliens or a civilization of pre-flood humans, the evidence just isn't strong enough yet. Do you want any of these things to be true? And now for a quick break because it's shout-out time. I want to give a big thank you to April Branham for this super thanks. It really means a lot and we wouldn't be here without you. If you are new here, be sure to subscribe to join the Origins Explained family.
A secret continent under Antarctica.
Apparently, you don't need to be alive to drop scientific bombshells. In what sounds like the setup for a sci-fi movie, scientists just uncovered the remains of a lost continent buried deep beneath Antarctica. The twist is that the intel came from a dead satellite. A satellite that's been out of commission since 2013 is still delivering posthumous scientific mic drops. Introducing GOES, the European Space Agency's Gravity Field and Ocean Circulation Explorer, also known as the Ferrari of space satellites. Launched in 2009 and toast by 2013, GOCE spent 4 glorious years mapping Earth's gravity with freakish precision. Now, even in the digital afterlife, its data is rocking the world of geology. The zombie satellite identified the ancient bones of a forgotten continent buried beneath Antarctica's ice sheet like a secret waiting to thaw. Using GOES's leftover gravity measurements, scientists peered under the ice and mapped out the Earth's lithosphere, the outer crusty shell that makes up continents. What they found beneath East Antarctica was mind-blowing. The researchers identified cratons, ancient chunks of continental crust that date back billions of years. These cratons match those found in India and Australia, confirming that East Antarctica once snuggled up to them back when all the continents were spooning under the name Gondwana. I think, my friends, I've already slipped down a rabbit hole and there may not be any coming back for me. Around 180 million years ago, the supercontinent Gondwana started ghosting its continental friends. One by one, India, Australia, and Antarctica went their separate ways, like people who just sort of grew apart. You know how it goes. Thanks to GOCE's ghost data and some serious geophysics, scientists now know Antarctica's side of the breakup story. According to lead researcher Fausto Ferraccioli of the British Antarctic Survey, this new data will help scientists figure out how Antarctica's bedrock geology affects its massive ice sheets. Before you fall asleep on me and start drooling, let me explain why this is so important in your life. Yes, your life. Understanding Antarctica's ice sheets is a big deal in the climate change conversation.
Knowing how ancient landforms influence modern ice flow could help scientists predict how the ice will behave in a warming world. And maybe, just maybe, this information could save my coastal viewers from being gobbled up by an unexpected tsunami when the sea levels rise.
Like an icy onion with secrets, Antarctica is slowly giving up its mysteries. And GHOST, the satellite that refuses to quit, just handed scientists a geological revelation from beyond the grave. But no matter what the climate scientists say, is anyone going to listen?
The road to nowhere.
A doorway to Narnia? A portal to the world of wizards? A gate into the alien workshops beneath Antarctica? I don't know where this door leads, but I sure would like to.
Let me back up a second. A strange rectangular formation spotted on Google Maps near Japan's Showa Station in East Antarctica has sparked a flurry of online speculation. Reddit users zeroed in on the coordinates, with one calling it a massive door, and others joking about secret bunkers and Bigfoot's Antarctic getaway.
According to scientists, what looks like a perfectly cut doorway in the side of the ice is nothing more than a quirky natural formation. To everyone else, it's an open doorway leading to the unknown.
Glaciologist Bethan Davies from the University of Newcastle said the structure is a grounded iceberg, stuck and slowly melting in place. I didn't even know icebergs crash like that. Historical imagery confirms that the feature has been sitting there, unchanged for years. She told the New York Post, "You can see many other icebergs in the area."
Professor Martin Seagard of Imperial College London added that the visual oddity is likely caused by ice flow reacting to subglacial terrain, combined with melting, refreezing, and katabatic winds.
For everyone else on Earth who doesn't know what katabatic means, let me bust out the dictionary. Katabatic is a downslope wind caused by gravity, driven by cold, dense air gusts flowing down a slope. Try finding a place to use that word today.
The geologists are out here busting our bubble. So why don't you let me know what you think the doorway is? The result of some complicated wind, or an entrance to somewhere those in power don't want us to know about? Let me know in the comments.
This almost ended humanity.
About 1.2 million years ago, nearly every single early human species was removed from the face of our planet. Few people are aware of this today, but the whole human race nearly went extinct before Homo sapiens even evolved. Had the incident been just a smidgen worse, you and I wouldn't be here today. Scary, right? Scarier still is that scientists don't really know what happened, but a chunk of ice from Antarctica could change that. This frozen time capsule might hold the answer.
In a remote corner of East Antarctica, scientists have just pulled off something extraordinary. Working in brutal sub-zero conditions, the team spent 4 summers at a site called Little Dome C, 24 miles from the nearest research base. Their goal was to reach the planet's oldest ice and maybe solve one of its oldest climate puzzles. They drilled an ice core sample longer than 8 Eiffel Towers stacked end to end. It's about a mile long, but using the Eiffel Tower as a unit of measurement is way more fun. Inside this ice core sample are air bubbles that haven't been touched in 1.2 million years. That's a long time to go without a hug.
These are tiny pockets of prehistoric air, literal breaths from a million years ago. They also contain ash from volcanic eruptions and other particles that can reveal exactly what Earth's atmosphere looked like back then.
Professor Carlo Barbante said this is ice our ancestors could have breathed. He's the lead researcher from Italy's Institute of Polar Sciences, and he said it's like holding time in your hands.
Dang, that's some profound stuff.
Scientists are especially interested in a strange shift that occurred 900,000 to 1.2 million years ago during the mid-Pleistocene transition.
For reasons that no one fully understands, Earth's ice age cycles suddenly changed. Normally, the Earth goes through a cold phase like you and I went through an emo phase in high school. MySpace still hasn't forgotten about that.
Earth's cold period happens every 41,000 years to every 100,000 years. During the mid-Pleistocene transition, there was a change, and humans nearly went extinct. Scientists have estimated that a climate catastrophe dropped the human population down to less than 1,000 people.
That's fewer people than you'll find at Costco on a Tuesday morning. Is there a link between this climate shift and our near demise? That's what the team hopes to find out by studying the Antarctic ice.
The core has been cut into much smaller pieces of about 3 feet long each. They will be shipped from Antarctica to labs across Europe, including the British Antarctic Survey in Cambridge. There, researchers will begin the painstaking process of analyzing trapped gases and particles to reconstruct ancient temperatures, CO2 levels, and more. According to Professor Barbante, there is a lot of the past in our future. We study ancient climates to better understand what's coming.
Smart, very smart. But what do you suppose they'll find? What do you think happened to human beings, primitive as they were a million years ago, to nearly erase them completely, like those stubbornly delicious dodo birds?
Atlantis Under the Ice. Few legends have the global stamina of Atlantis, a supposedly advanced civilization brought down by divine wrath after growing too arrogant for its own good. First immortalized by Plato and Timaeus and Critias roughly 2,500 years ago, the tale spread through Arab geographers and medieval minds like a rumor passed from port to port. It wasn't just a story, it was a warning, a dream, and for many, a real place waiting to be rediscovered. You can probably see where I'm going with this. Antarctica could be covering up the biggest archaeological mystery of all time. Is Atlantis frozen under a mile of ice? Plato described Atlantis as an island larger than Libya and Asia Minor combined, somewhere west of the Pillars of Hercules, known today as the Strait of Gibraltar. The Atlanteans, once noble, became war-hungry and corrupt. In response, the gods wiped them off the map with earthquakes and floods. Atlantis isn't the only story about a mythical city being destroyed by gods, but it is the only one with legs like a centipede. It's been more than 2,000 years and the myth just won't go away. The search for Atlantis has spanned centuries and continents. Theories place it in Spain, Crete, the Caribbean, even under the US. And then there's the Antarctica theory, a cold one, but not without its own unique heat. In the 20th century, history professor Charles Hapgood offered a bold idea. Atlantis didn't sink, it slid. He believed a sudden shift in Earth's crust displaced the lost civilization from a temperate zone to the frozen desert we now call Antarctica. According to Hapgood, the continent was once lush and inhabited. Then, when the poles shifted, it got buried under ice. Albert Einstein lent his cautious support to Hapgood's crust displacement theory, giving it just enough credibility to catch fire with fringe historians and Atlantis chasers. I mean, come on, if the big Stein is behind the theory, you know there must be at least something to it. In modern times, advanced understanding of plate tectonics has discredited Hapgood's idea of rapid crustal shifts big enough to move Atlantis across an ocean. Still, the idea refuses to die. Some still believe ruins lie beneath the Antarctic ice, waiting. The belief is kept alive by discoveries like the ones I've already told you about today, from the weird man-made structures broken under the snow to gaping doorways that look like they lead to a lost city. Is this enough proof for you to accept that Atlantis is in Antarctica? Or do you need more evidence? Maybe extraordinary evidence? What's fascinating is that you don't see much about Atlantis in the history records up until the Renaissance. It was during the age of exploration that rumors of Atlantis suddenly became mainstream, and a lot of it was thanks to the New World. When Europeans encountered advanced indigenous civilizations like the Aztec, some claimed that these people must be the descendants of Atlantis. That idea hit peak weird in 1882, when Congressman Ignatius Donnelly published Atlantis, the Antediluvian World. Donnelly argued that Atlantis was the origin point for all ancient civilizations, like both Egyptians and Native Americans. His work helped birth an entire genre of pseudo-history and solidified Atlantis as a pop culture obsession. And the obsession lives on today. Icebergs older than Antarctica. We think of Antarctica as eternally frozen, a land of ancient ice. But what if the ice came after the icebergs? Prepare for a mind-bending journey back millions of years to a time when rogue ice giants sailed warm Antarctic seas, a discovery that flips our understanding of the planet's coldest continent on its head. Researchers from Utrecht University have found evidence that icebergs were drifting around 37 million years ago, a full 3 million years before Antarctica put on its big white coat. It's a classic chicken and egg scenario, except with ice instead of eggs. Scientists studying rock debris near South Orkney, a little island near Iceberg Alley, found stones that could only have made the trip there by hitching a ride on an iceberg. These rocks came from Antarctica, but they date back to a time when Antarctica was still in its pre-ice phase, sipping warm seas and listening to tropical bird songs. Turns out the Weddell Sea was just cold enough and experienced just enough snowfall that medium-sized icebergs could have made the journey like icy cruise ships without a captain. Before Antarctica was an icy continent, the relatively warm waters of the South had icy bergs floating around. But why should anyone care all these years later? Because as the planet heats up, Antarctica's ice cap is shedding icebergs like a dog sheds fur in summer. And these icebergs bring huge volumes of fresh water into the Southern Ocean. That fresh water can mess with ocean currents and reduce the sea's ability to absorb carbon. In other words, knowing more about icebergs can help scientists better predict the consequences of what happens when they all melt, like iceberg A23A, a Titanic-sized chunk that broke off Antarctica in 1986 and is now heading towards South Georgia Island, home to penguins, seals, and birds. When it melts, sea levels will almost certainly rise. And the more icebergs that melt, the faster the sea level rising happens. I hope you have some water wings handy, or at least a boat. Operation Highjump. The truth. A frozen wasteland, blizzards howling like angry ghosts, penguins judging you silently. Welcome to Antarctica in 1946, the year the US military rolled in like it was hosting the world's chilliest block party. But instead of hot cocoa and sled dogs, they brought battleships, bombers, and 4,700 troops. Nothing says training exercises like a full-blown naval invasion of a continent that is mostly home to tuxedo birds. This was Operation Highjump. More than 75 years later, and people still aren't sure what the heck was really going on. I'll try to take it from the top. It was August 1946. World War II was barely over. The Cold War was heating up faster than a microwave burrito, and America had a whole lot of military toys and nowhere cold enough to test them. Admiral Chester Nimitz, who practically ran the Navy, announced a massive operation to Antarctica. Officially, this was about training and reconnaissance. Unofficially, well, I'll get to that in a minute. The operation was commanded by Rear Admiral Richard H. Cruzen and Rear Admiral Richard E. Byrd. They called it Task Force 68, which sounds more like a Marvel supervillain group than a military unit. And what a unit it was! Stacked with 70 ships, 13 aircraft, and enough personnel to fill a decent-sized stadium. It was, no exaggeration, the biggest military expedition Antarctica has ever seen. So what were they doing down there besides freezing their butts off? According to Admiral Byrd, the main goals were to train military personnel in Arctic conditions, test how planes and ships hold up in extreme cold, scout for potential airbase locations on ice, and grab some geological data. That is the official story of Operation Highjump. But historian Diane Olson-Bellinger told Smithsonian Magazine that there were hush-hush goals too, like quietly claiming territory and showing President Harry Truman that the Navy still deserved a fat post-war budget. The operation kicked off in December 1946. Planes launched, ships powered through icebergs, helicopters buzzed around like confused mechanical bees. And then tragedy struck. A Martin PBM-5 called George 1 crashed into a mountain on Thurston Island, killing 3 crewmen, Maxwell A. Lopez, Wendell K. Henderson, and Frederick W. Williams. The 6 survivors were stranded for 13 days before being rescued. Even after the disaster, the mission trudged on. And then there was another disaster. A chopper trying to return to the USS Pine Island, iced up and face-planted into the sea. The pilots were fished out of the water like cold, cranky sardines, but thankfully there were no fatalities. Eventually, the team set up base near the Bay of Whales, calling it Little America 4. Don't ask me what happened to Little America 1 through 3 because I have no idea. Here, the team built tents, runways, and over the next few weeks flew photographic missions. They captured over 70,000 photos and mapped 1.5 million square miles of the continent. Then, after just 3 months, Operation Highjump was suddenly over. Navy brass called it a success. The Navy even made a movie called The Secret Land, and it won an Oscar for Best Documentary in 1948. Dang, the Oscars sure have changed since then, huh? The Navy was happy, but others whispered of conspiracy. They are still whispering today. Some say Operation Highjump was disguised as a scientific mission when in reality they were hunting secret Nazi bases hidden under the ice, making contact with aliens, finding the ice wall that flat earthers believe surrounds the world, and also climbing into the hollow earth to find the civilization living under our feet. Truth is, none of this wild speculation has ever been proven. Though, I'll be honest, if the military did find a UFO buried in a glacier, they probably wouldn't post about it on Facebook. What came next was a second Navy operation in 1947 called Operation Windmill. It was smaller and again labeled a training mission. And again, the whole thing is shrouded in secrecy. Eventually, the world got its act together and signed the Antarctic Treaty in 1959, banning military activity and turning the continent into a peaceful science lab. Today, Antarctica is more about climate data and researchers trying not to freeze to their laptops. The world below the ice. What do you do when you find a hidden lake underneath the Antarctic ice? You drill into it, drop a camera through the hole, and hope it doesn't land on a slumbering monster's head. If you thought Antarctica was just a blank sheet of ice, think again. Deep beneath the frozen crust lies Lake Enigma, a secret underground lake. And it's not just a chunk of slush. It is home to weird, oxygen-loving microbes, bizarre underwater carpets, and possibly the inspiration for future space horror films. Let's dive in, but not literally because it is way too cold for me. For years, scientists assumed Lake Enigma in Victoria Land was completely frozen. It's a logical thing to think, considering the lake is under the ice, but during an expedition in 2019 and 2020, researchers used ground-penetrating radar and discovered 40 feet of liquid water beneath the surface. The lake wasn't frozen after all. Scientists drilled down and dropped a camera, finding what can only be described as Alien meets SpongeBob. Inside this buried lake, completely cut off from sunlight and air, which happen to be two main ingredients for life, scientists found a thriving community of microbial creatures. What kind of microbes, you ask? I'm glad you're curious. They found photosynthetic organisms somehow making oxygen in the dark. They found spiky mats and crumpled tree-like blobs that looked like nature tried to crochet a coral reef with oven mitts on. And lastly, they found Ptesibacteria, tiny squatters that live on larger host cells in relationships ranging from roommate to parasite with boundary issues. These Ptesibacteria aren't supposed to like oxygen, yet here they are, thriving in a high O2 lake. Scientists believe they've evolved new metabolic tricks like tiny alien survival hacks. There aren't any krakens, but the weird life forms are still kind of awesome. In fact, scientists are saying the tiny creatures living in this no-sun, low-oxygen environment could be similar to the life forms living on other planets. If aliens do exist, they might look less like E.T. and more like a slimy mat with boundary issues and a photosynthesis addiction. In other words, aliens could look like any other freaky thing from the ocean. My money's on aliens looking like octopuses. What about you? A lost civilization. A secret lost city buried under the Antarctic ice. Ancient pyramids guarded by frozen statues and rogue penguin priests. It all sounds like something straight out of a History Channel special on icy aliens, but could it be true? I talked earlier about Admiral Byrd of Operation Highjump. Now I need to talk about some alleged leaked photos from his expedition, showing Admiral Byrd standing next to ancient alien obelisks. These photos are crazy, like this one here, showing what looked like polar explorers in Antarctica gathered outside an ancient stone building, possibly a temple or a tomb. Since late 2022, this photo, along with other retro-looking images, have been making the rounds online. They show bundled up figures posing beside pyramids, statues, temples, and other ancient relics in the middle of Antarctica. The captions scream things like "top secret lost photos" and "proof of forgotten civilization." Unfortunately, though, the consensus is that these images are completely fake, courtesy of artificial intelligence, and one guy with a sense of humor and too much access to Dolly. The photos are AI-generated fakes cooked up by a man named Tim Boucher, who describes himself as a hyper-realist AI artist. Basically, he makes really convincing fake stuff to mess with your head. He's great. Boucher bundled these photos into an ebook called Mysterious Antarctica, part of his Lost Books collection, a series of 48 AI-generated conspiracy core titles with enough weirdness to keep Reddit threads alive for decades. Boucher's goal was not necessarily to convince people the Earth is hollow or that Admiral Byrd discovered a UFO base. He wants to show how easy it is to make fake stuff look real, and to showcase how terrifyingly fast people will believe it, repost it, and swear it's in the Bible. I want people to be suspicious, he said. Well, I have to say, it's a job well done, Boucher. People are indeed suspicious. But I can't help but feel like Boucher spreading images all over the internet is detracting from the real mystery of a lost civilization in Antarctica. You've probably seen pictures of the Antarctic pyramid that everyone is losing their minds over on Twitter and TikTok. Scientists say it's nothing but a boring, rocky, frostbitten mountain. But it could be a pyramid crusted over with ice. When Boucher floods the net with fake photos of fake scientists studying a fake mountain pyramid, it takes attention away from what could be a real ancient pyramid in the Ellsworth Range of western Antarctica. Glaciologists call these pyramid-shaped mountains nunataks, mountain peaks poking through the ice. Scientists refuse to admit that they might be ancient tombs hiding alien technology, or the Ark of the Covenant. As glaciologist Heidi Silvestre put it, our brains want to see pyramids, but they're just rocks. Dang brain, always seeing whatever it wants. At the end of the day, there is no irrefutable evidence that an ancient lost civilization is hiding under Antarctica. And next time you see Admiral Byrd doing a TikTok dance in front of a snow sphinx, just remember, don't believe everything you see on the internet. Unless its origins explained, of course.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to stay tuned for extra content you might have missed. Himera. Between 2008 and 2011, workers discovered a necropolis dating back to the Archaic and Classical periods, containing over 12,000 ancient burials of humans and horses. The fascinating find was made during the expansion of an existing railway line at the site in the ancient Greek city of Himera. Situated along the border between Hellenic Sicily and an area that the Phoenicians once controlled, the burials are associated with an infamous battle that took place in 480 BC. It was the Greeks versus the Carthaginians. The Greeks won the battle, and to mark the occasion, they erected a structure called the Temple of Victory. Their glory was relatively short-lived, however, because several decades later, in 409 BC, the Carthaginians seized and razed the city. The destruction lives on in the form of the human and equestrian remains left behind at the site, buried in both mass and individual graves. Altogether, there are thought to be 9 mass graves, 7 from the 480 BC battle and 2 from the skirmish that occurred in 409 BC, as well as 30 or so horse burials. Despite being known as one of the world's greatest battles, the one that occurred in 480 BC remains somewhat of a mystery to experts. Historical records of the battle are, as John W.I. Lee put it in an article for Archaeology magazine, biased, confusing, and incomplete. That's a good way to describe it. These accounts, written mainly by 5th century BC historian Herodotus and 1st century BC historian Diodorus Siculus, leave a lot of unanswered questions, which scientists have only begun to solve relatively recently through archaeological excavations. While researchers are closer than ever to figuring out the battle's precise location and other obscure details, they have years of work ahead of them. So far, their findings have more or less confirmed what they already believed about the battle. The Bom Jesus wreck. While draining a man-made lagoon in the Namibian desert along the country's coast in 2008, geologists from the De Beers Diamond Mining Company came across a 500-year-old shipwreck. Known as the Skeleton Coast, the shoreline along the Atlantic Ocean and the eastern borders of Namibia and part of Angola is famous for the appearance of shipwrecks. But this one stood out among others once experts realized that it was laden with $13 million worth of Spanish and Portuguese gold coins. Labeled by archaeologists as one of the most significant shipwrecks ever found, it sat beneath the ocean floor for centuries before it was finally discovered. Besides gold, bits of materials including metal, wood, copper, and bronze also appeared at the site. The team notified archaeologist Dr. Dieter Nolli of the Southern Africa Institute of Maritime Archaeological Research of the fascinating finds, and he immediately identified one of the artifacts as 16th century artillery. Thanks to Dr. Nolli's keen eye, the ship was quickly identified as the Bom Jesus, or the Good Jesus, a Portuguese vessel dating back to 1533, making it the oldest wreck discovered in the immediate area by over 200 years. The ship disappeared while traveling to India, and until its discovery, its whereabouts were a mystery. Several questions remain unanswered, including what the Bom Jesus was doing near the Skeleton Coast, and what caused it to sink. While Nolli believes that a combination of heavy cargo and bad weather are to blame, nobody truly knows for sure. Ancient masked figurine. Archaeologists recently discovered a strange, small, masked clay figurine set upon the shoulder of a deceased woman in a 5,000-year-old mass grave in western Siberia's Novosibirsk region. The burial is filled with the remains of people from the Odinov culture, which dates back to the Bronze Age. Their way of life revolved around hunting, fishing, and animal husbandry, and they primarily kept sheep, cattle, and horses. The Odinov people lived in dugouts in an isolated community surrounded by forest steppe terrain. The little statue, measuring roughly the same size as the palm of someone's hand, had a stripe along its face, representing a tattoo. It was laid on its stomach, and its head was ritualistically broken off and turned upwards, in a manner never before seen in the region. The statuette's head was covered with a helmet made of horse vertebrae, featuring an image of a bear. We've never come across anything like this despite our extensive knowledge of the Odinov culture's burial rites, Professor Vyacheslav Molodin, who headed the expedition, told the Siberian Times. The woman must have been an unusual person to have such a figurine escorting her to the afterlife. The deceased female was laid face down on top of a man's body, and the two were bound together in birch bark and set ablaze. Experts are thus far at a loss to explain the figurine. Sea monster depiction in shipwreck. Thought to be the world's best preserved late medieval ship, the Gribshunden was discovered in the Baltic Sea near Sweden, roughly 500 years after it sank. Researchers were perplexed by a figurehead on the ship resembling an unknown animal that so far is best described as a sea monster. The 15th century image remains open to interpretation, with marine archaeology professor Johan Ronby describing it in an interview with The Express as some kind of fantasy animal, a dragon with lion ears and a crocodile-like mouth. It's unlike anything ever featured on other known wrecks, according to Marcus Sandekier of the Blekinge Museum, who said, "We don't have ships like this that have been recovered at all. It's something we haven't seen before. It's unique in the world, and I think there will be more excavations around here with more unique objects." The ship dates back to around the same time that Christopher Columbus sailed the seas, meaning it stands to teach researchers quite a bit about how marine vessels of the time were made. But for now, the animal that the figurehead represents remains a mystery, and experts are still thriving to understand more about the shipbuilding methods of the time. Young Viking skeleton. Archaeologists working next to Dublin Castle in Ireland recently discovered the mostly intact skeleton of a Viking child, which they believe date back to the 9th or 10th century. The remains are believed to belong to a 10 to 12-year-old boy, and experts believe he may have met foul play during his final moments because of what they found. Someone apparently wrapped the boy's body in a shroud and threw him into the River Poddle, according to RTE. His shoulders were hunched together and an iron buckle was found nearby, further suggesting that the youth met a disturbing, untimely demise. Beyond that, the apparent lack of evidence of a proper burial indicates that someone harmed the boy and carelessly discarded him into the river in which he was found. All signs point toward the boy's end being violent, but archaeologists have yet to determine exactly how or why. Further tests should shed more light on the matter by definitively revealing the child's ethnicity, gender, and death date. Experts hope that this and other recent discoveries will help them better understand the lives of Vikings in Ireland. We pretty much can guess it wasn't a very peaceful and relaxing time back then, but when has it ever been? Mysterious mummies. Egypt's Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities recently announced the discovery of 13 unopened coffins thought to date back roughly 2,500 years. The caskets were found piled on top of one another, sealed in a well, nearly 40 feet deep. They were so pristinely preserved, their original coloring and designs were still visible when they were pulled out of the ground. Archaeologists discovered the baker's dozen of mummies at Saqqara, an ancient site located roughly 20 miles south of Cairo, the modern-day capital. They expect to continue making discoveries at the site, which is also home to the Step Pyramid, which they believe is the world's oldest such structure of its type. This discovery happened just 1 week after Egypt opened its borders again, along with its archaeological sites and museums to visitors. In a Twitter post, Khaled El Inani, Egypt's Minister of Tourism and Antiquities, said it was an indescribable feeling when you witness a new archaeological discovery. Very little is known about the recently unearthed burial so far, leaving us with no choice but to await further details. Ancient Fort. In March of this year, before everything was closed down, archaeologists began excavating Arthur's Seat, an extinct volcano overlooking modern-day Edinburgh, Scotland. They discovered a fort built by the Votadini, an Iron Age Celtic tribe that once lived in southeast Scotland and northeast England. The ruins date back some 3,000 years. A nearby burial site called Traprain Law once served as the Votadini's capital. Evidence suggests that they were ultimately Romanized and integrated into early Scottish culture. Archaeologists are still conducting excavations on the site atop Arthur's Seat, which still bears evidence of walls despite being heavily eroded. The 820-foot-high summit also contains evidence of buildings discovered during previous digs, including thick stone walls. Researchers believe that the Votadini used part of the mountaintop land, which is now empty and stands in stark contrast to how it looked in the past, for farming and trading. Female skeleton circle. Several years ago in Germany's Saxony-Anhalt region near Brücken-Hackfufel, someone unearthed what archaeologists would later call Germany's most important archaeological find in decades, an ancient 1,500-year-old tomb belonging to a Germanic lord. It was surrounded by 6 female skeletons arranged in a circle, suggesting that the women were either human sacrifices or voluntarily gave their lives in some sort of cultish ritual that called for them to accompany the lord into the afterlife. They may have been widows or concubines. Oddly, the man's remains have yet to be unearthed, leading experts to believe that his ashes may be located in a cauldron within the central tomb, which serves as the centerpiece that the female bodies encircle. The location of the discovery, which was made while clearing land for a new chicken farm, is being kept a secret to avoid grave robbers from looting the site. Besides the burial of the Germanic lord, the property appears to serve as a royal cemetery of sorts, with seemingly important individuals laid to rest within it. Prophecies missing from the Bible. In a recent airing of the Discovery Channel series Dead Sea Scrolls: The Doomsday Prophecy, experts revealed the discovery of scroll fragments in the Qumran caves in the Judean desert, where the rest of the Dead Sea Scrolls were found. Thanks to advancing technology, they are now finally getting to the bottom of the mysteries revolving around the cryptic artifacts, which date back to the 1st century. Known as the War Scroll, its contents are not featured in the Bible, and the fragments, which were found scattered throughout one of the caves, known as Cave 11, appear to be a handbook for military strategy and operations that contain an otherwise unmentioned prophecy. It's one of numerous ancient texts that did not make their way into the Bible, and it predicts what researchers referred to as a violent cataclysm between 2 groups called the Sons of Light and the Sons of Darkness. This could have been the siege of Masada, one of the first Jewish-Roman War's last events, which took place on a hilltop in modern-day Israel between 73 and 74 AD. The Sicaries were a group of Jewish rebels who adamantly opposed the Roman occupation of Judea, and experts believe that the newly discovered scroll fragments may provide insight into why they refused to leave Masada, despite being vastly outnumbered by the Romans. The battle is described in just a portion of the more than 1,000 scrolls that have been found in the Qumran caves, leaving researchers eager to learn what else we don't yet know about prophecies and other events that the text may describe, but that may not be detailed in Scripture. Violent burial mounds. The archaeological record of steppe nomads is largely lacking for the most part. One of few exceptions can be found in southern Siberia's Republic of Tuva, which contains detailed evidence of the day-to-day lives and customs of humans who occupied the area as far back as the Paleolithic era. Of particular interest are the Scythians, a Bronze Iron Age and late antiquity group who left behind funerary structures filled with signs of exceptional ritualistic violence and possibly warfare, which occurred between the 2nd and 4th centuries. An international team of researchers led by experts from the University of Bern and the Russian Academy of Sciences explores burial mounds considered some of the earliest royal tombs of the Scythians. Tunug I, one of the earliest known Scythian royal tombs/burial mounds, was excavated starting in 2017. The digs led archaeologists to a nearby cemetery containing the remains of 87 people, around a quarter of whom appeared to have met a particularly brutal demise. Some skeletons show evidence of hand-to-hand combat, while others contain traces of unspeakable forms of slaughter, including decapitation, throat-slitting, and scalping. Most of the victims were men, but women and children were also counted among the victims. Regarding the horrifying nature of the findings, lead study author Marco Mileia said this suggests that violence was not only related to raids and battles, but probably also due to specific, still mysterious, rituals involving the killing of humans and the collection of war trophies. He went on to mention a period of political instability that the region underwent during the early centuries AD. Milea further speculated that these changes affected people's lives and deaths in certain ways, much like political strife still heavily impacts the daily goings-on in many parts of the world. Scientists continue to examine bones from the site bearing signs of trauma in an attempt to learn more about the deceased, including their movement, diet, and genetic ancestry. Whether or not they will definitively determine the specifics behind the gory rituals that seem to have occurred here remains unknown. Thanks for watching! Be sure to hit that subscribe button and the notification bell to hear about more archaeological discoveries. See you next time!